If you've started avoiding certain situations, skipping the uneven path in the park, holding the wall when you get up at night, thinking twice before stepping off a curb, I want you to hear this clearly. That caution isn't just aging. That's your body telling you something specific is going wrong. And the good news, and I mean genuinely good news, is that it's fixable. Balance and walking stability are not fixed traits. They are trainable skills at 65, at 70, at 80. The research on this is not even close. Targeted exercise consistently and significantly improves balance and gait in older adults, often within just a few weeks, not marginally, meaningfully. The kind of improvement you actually feel when you're moving through your day. So here's what we're doing today. I'm going to take you through 10 exercises broken into 3 categories. First, we're going to work on the foundational stability muscles, the ones that most people completely neglect and that are quietly responsible for the majority of balance problems after 60. Then we're going to move into dynamic balance, exercises that train your body to stay stable while it's actually moving, which is where most falls actually happen. And finally, we'll get into walking-specific drills that directly improve your gait, your stride, and your confidence on your feet. You don't need equipment. You do need something sturdy to hold on to for a few of the early exercises. A kitchen counter or the back of a solid chair works perfectly. And you need about 20 minutes. That's the investment. 20 minutes done consistently, and the change in how you move will surprise you. Let's get to work. Here's what I want you to understand before we get into the exercises, because if you understand why balance declines, everything we're about to do makes a lot more sense. Your balance system is actually 3 systems working together simultaneously. The first is your vestibular system, the inner ear, which tracks your head position and movement. The second is your vision, which your brain uses constantly to orient you in space. And the third, and this is the one most people don't know about, is proprioception. That's your body's ability to sense where its own limbs are without looking at them. Close your eyes and touch your nose. That's proprioception. It's the reason you can walk in the dark without falling over every step. And it's the reason a healthy person can stand on one foot for 30 seconds without wobbling. Now here's what age does to all 3 of these. The vestibular system becomes less sensitive. The signals it sends to your brain slow down and lose precision. Vision often deteriorates, especially depth perception. And proprioception, this one is crucial. Proprioception declines significantly with age, and it declines much faster in people who are sedentary. The nerve endings in your feet, ankles, and legs that report position back to your brain become less accurate, less responsive, and your brain, getting fuzzier information from all 3 systems at once, starts to make balance errors that it never used to make. But here's what the research shows, and this is the part that changed how I think about working with older adults. A study published in the Journal of Gerontology followed adults over 65 through a structured balance training program and found that just 8 weeks of targeted exercise produced a 45% reduction in fall risk. Not 5%, not 10, 45%. And the mechanism wasn't mysterious. The exercises were directly retraining the proprioceptive system, forcing the nervous system to sharpen its own signals. You're not just building muscle, you're rebuilding the communication network between your body and your brain. I had someone in their early 70s tell me once, and this really stuck with me, that they just accepted that their balance was going, that they figured it was one of those things you just lose as you get older, and there's nothing to do about it, and they'd been quietly organizing their life around that assumption for years, avoiding things, limiting themselves, and within 6 weeks of doing exactly the kind of exercises we're going through today, they were standing in the shower without holding the wall, walking on grass without looking down at every step, small things, but they weren't small to them. That assumption that balance loss is irreversible is one of the most damaging things I see in this age group, because it leads people to move less, and moving less accelerates exactly the decline they're afraid of. It's a loop, and the way to break the loop is to start, specifically, deliberately, and consistently. That's what the next 3 sections are going to do. Okay, category 1. These are the foundational exercises, the ones that build the base everything else sits on. Don't underestimate them because they look simple. The people who skip straight to the harder stuff and ignore this category are the ones who plateau. Exercise 1 is the single leg stand. And before you dismiss this, I want you to actually try it right now before we move on. Stand near your counter, feet together, and lift one foot just an inch off the floor. Just hold it. How long can you go without grabbing something? If the answer is less than 10 seconds, that tells you something important. Research shows that adults who can't hold a single leg stand for 10 seconds have a significantly elevated fall risk, not because of the standing itself, but because that test is a direct readout of how well your proprioceptive system is functioning. Here's how to train it. Stand on one foot, holding the counter lightly with fingertips only. Not a death grip, just a touch for safety. Hold for 10 seconds. Switch. That's 1 rep. Work up to 30 seconds per side over a few weeks. And here's the progression that makes this genuinely powerful. Once you can hold 30 seconds comfortably, try it with your eyes closed. Even 5 seconds with eyes closed forces your proprioceptive system to work without any visual input at all. That's where the real rewiring happens. Exercise 2 is the heel-to-toe stand, also called the tandem stance. Place one foot directly in front of the other so your heel is touching your toes, like you're standing on a tightrope. Hold for 10 to 30 seconds, then switch which foot is in front. This position narrows your base of support to almost nothing, which forces the stabilizing muscles in your ankles and hips to fire hard, just to keep you upright. It's deceptively challenging. If you find it easy, close your eyes. You'll find it isn't. Exercise 3 is the sit-to-stand. And I want to reframe this one, because most people think of it as a leg-strengthening exercise, which it is. But for balance purposes, what it's actually training is your ability to manage a controlled weight shift. Every time you stand up from a chair, your center of gravity moves forward and upward in a fraction of a second. If your stabilizing system is slow to respond to that shift, that's a fall risk. Not when you're standing, but in those 2 seconds of transition. Practice this with your arms crossed over your chest. No pushing off the armrests. 10 reps, slow and controlled on the way down. The lowering is just as important as the standing. Exercise 4 is standing hip abduction. Stand at the counter, shift your weight onto your right foot, and slowly lift your left leg out to the side, maybe 8 to 12 inches, then lower it back down. 10 to 15 reps each side. What this is training is the gluteus medius, and this muscle is one of the most underappreciated muscles in the entire body for balance and walking stability. Every single step you take, your gluteus medius on the standing leg fires to keep your pelvis level. When it's weak, and in most sedentary older adults it is weak, your hips drop slightly with each step. That hip drop throws off your whole gait pattern and puts you at much higher fall risk on uneven surfaces. Every year, about 1 in 4 adults over 65 experiences a fall. 1 in 4. And roughly 20% of those falls result in serious injury. A broken hip, a head injury, something that requires hospitalization. A broken hip at 70 or 75 isn't just a painful injury. It's often the event that starts a cascade. Extended immobility, loss of independence, leaving the home they've lived in for decades. I've seen it happen. A person who was active, capable, living their life fully, and one fall changed everything. Not because they were frail, but because nobody had ever told them their balance was trainable. Nobody had given them the tools to prevent it. You have those tools right now, and I want you to take them seriously, not because I'm trying to frighten you, but because the cost of ignoring this is real, and the cost of addressing it is 20 minutes a few times a week. That trade-off is not even close. So let's keep going. Category 2. This is where we shift from static stability to dynamic. Amic balance. And this distinction matters more than most people realize. Static balance is holding a position. Dynamic balance is staying stable while your body is actually moving. And here's the uncomfortable truth. Static balance training alone is not enough, because falls don't happen when you're standing still. They happen mid-stride, when you step off a curb you didn't see clearly, when you turn your head to look at something while you're walking, when you reach for something slightly out of your normal range. Your balance system needs to be trained in motion. That's what these 3 exercises do. Exercise 5 is the weight shift walk. Stand with your feet hip-width apart and slowly shift your weight from your right foot to your left, all the way over until your right foot is barely touching the ground. Then back again. That's the basic movement. Once you've got that, start moving forward with it. Step your right foot forward, transfer your full weight onto it with control, pause for a beat, then step your left foot forward and transfer again. Deliberately slow. Exaggerated weight transfer with each step. What you're training here is the moment of single leg loading that happens with every step you take. That split second where all your weight is on one foot and your balance system has to hold it together. Most people rush through this moment without ever thinking about it. Slowing it down and training it deliberately builds the stability that makes normal walking safer. Exercise 6 is the clock reach. Stand on one foot, left hand on the counter for light support. And imagine you're standing in the center of a clock face on the floor. With your free foot, reach forward to 12 o'clock. Touch your toe down lightly, return to center. Then reach to 3 o'clock, then 6, then 9. One full clock, then switch feet. This exercise is training something specific. It's forcing the standing leg to stabilize against movement in multiple directions simultaneously, which is exactly what happens in real life when you're navigating uneven ground, stepping around obstacles, or catching yourself from a stumble. It also directly challenges the hip and ankle stabilizers in a way that straight-line exercises simply don't reach. Actually, I want to add something to that. The toe touch at each position should be light. You're not transferring weight, you're just reaching. The whole point is that the standing leg does all the work. If you're leaning heavily on your toe to stay balanced, step back to an easier version and build from there. Form matters more than range on this one. Exercise 7 is the tandem walk. This is the one that looks like a sobriety test. And honestly, the reason police use it for that is because it's a genuine test of your neurological balance system. Walk in a straight line, placing one foot directly in front of the other, heel touching toe with each step, arms out to the sides if you need them. 10 steps forward, turn carefully, 10 steps back. When this gets easy, and it will, add a head turn. Every few steps, slowly turn your head to the right, then to the left while you keep walking. That head movement disrupts the vestibular input your brain is relying on and forces your proprioceptive system to compensate. It's uncomfortable at first. That discomfort is the adaptation happening in real time. A study published in Age and Aging found that exercise programs combining static and dynamic balance training were significantly more effective at reducing fall incidents than programs using static training alone, nearly twice as effective in some of the trials reviewed. That's the science validating exactly why we're doing both categories, not just one. The progression across these 7 exercises is intentional. You've gone from standing still on 2 feet to 1 foot, to moving in straight lines, to moving in multiple directions with vestibular disruption. Each layer is preparing your nervous system for more complex demands. And the next category, walking-specific drills, is where it all comes together. Category 3, walking drills. And I want to be clear about what these are. These aren't just walking for exercise. These are specific movement patterns that directly retrain the mechanics of how you walk. Because here's something most people don't know. The way you walk changes as you age, and not in ways that are obvious to you from the inside. The stride gets shorter, the pace slows, the heel strike softens, and the time you spend with both feet on the ground simultaneously, what researchers call double support time, quietly increases because your brain is subconsciously adding extra ground contact as a safety buffer. These are all compensation strategies. And while they feel safe in the moment, they actually make your gait less efficient and less stable over time. A shuffling, cautious gait is more likely to catch on uneven ground, not less. These 3 exercises are specifically designed to reverse those patterns, to rebuild the mechanics your body has gradually traded away. Exercise 8 is exaggerated heel strike walking. As you walk, consciously drive your heel into the ground first with each step, more deliberately than you normally would. Really roll through the foot, from heel to ball to toe, and push off with your toes at the end of each step. This sounds simple, but most older adults have significantly reduced push-off force in their gait without realizing it. The toe push-off is what generates forward momentum and activates the calf pump, which, if you watched our circulation video, you'll know is critical for leg blood flow as well as walking stability. 10 to 15 meters of deliberate heel-to-toe walking, then rest. Do 2 or 3 passes. Exercise 9 is high knee walking. Slow, deliberate, exaggerated knee lifts with each step. Thighs coming up toward parallel with the floor, if you can manage it, or as high as is comfortable. Use the counter or a wall alongside you for support if needed. What this is training is hip flexor strength and the ability to clear the ground properly with each step. Reduced ground clearance, that small shuffle where your feet barely leave the floor, is one of the primary causes of trip and fall accidents. You don't catch your foot on a crack because you're clumsy. You catch it because your hip flexors have weakened enough that your foot isn't lifting as high as it used to. High knee walking directly addresses that. 10 to 15 meters, 2 passes. Exercise 10 is stride length walking. Pick 2 points about 15 meters apart, down the hallway, along the kitchen counter, wherever you have space. Walk from one to the other with deliberately longer strides than your normal comfortable pace. Not so long that it feels unstable, just consciously extended beyond your default. Then walk back at your normal pace. That contrast is the training. You're teaching your brain and your body that a longer stride is available and accessible, because often the shortened stride of older adults isn't a physical limitation. It's a learned caution that's become a habit. Challenging that habit regularly keeps the fuller movement pattern active and available. Here's exactly what the full program looks like in practice. 3 sessions per week is the target. Not every day. Your nervous system needs recovery time between balance training sessions, just like your muscles do. Each session starts with the 4 foundational exercises: single leg stand, heel to toe stand, sit to stand, hip abduction, about 7 or 8 minutes. This is your base layer every single time. From there, move into the dynamic balance exercises: weight shift walk, clock reach, tandem walk. Another 6 or 7 minutes. This is where your nervous system starts working in motion. Finish with the 3 walking drills: heel strike, high knees, stride length. 5 to 6 minutes. By the end of this block, your whole gait system has been challenged, not just your muscles. Total time, 20 to 25 minutes. In the first week, everything will feel harder than you expect. That's normal, and it's actually a good sign. It means your balance system is being challenged, which is exactly what we want. By week 3, you'll notice the foundational exercises getting easier. That's when you start adding the eyes closed progressions. By week 6, and this is what the research consistently shows, most people notice real changes in how they move day to day. More confidence on stairs, less hesitation on uneven surfaces, getting up from a chair without thinking about it. A study out of the British Journal of Sports Medicine followed older adults through a 12-week structured balance and gait program and found significant improvements not just in fall risk scores, but in self-reported confidence during daily activities, what they call balance self-efficacy. And that confidence piece matters as much as the physical improvement, because the fear of falling is itself a risk factor. It makes you move less, move differently, move with a kind of braced, cautious stiffness that actually makes you less stable, not more. When you train your balance and see real results, that fear starts to lift, and you move freely again. That's the goal here. Not just safer movement, free movement, confident movement. The kind where you stop thinking about your feet every time you walk across an unfamiliar surface and you just walk. You've got 10 exercises. You've got a program, 3 sessions a week, 20 minutes, 6 weeks. That's the commitment. It's not complicated. It's not expensive. It just requires that you start and that you keep going when the first week feels hard. Do that. And in 6 weeks, come back and tell me what's changed, because something will have. Subscribe for more, and I'll see you in the next one. Let's go.